best person I know, my husband, Don Beyer.
Am I lucky or what? They drew straws at the State Board of Elections back on April 2nd for ballot position. And I kept telling people in the campaign that I was going to be first on the ballot. They said, no, you're not. There's 6 straws at the first 6. I said, no, I'm going to be first. And I was first. And you know why? Because I married her and I knew I was the luckiest guy. So thank you very, very, very much for coming tonight. It's one of the most amazing parts about this campaign is how humbling it is. How 12 weeks ago we can start to jump into this race, think, well, this will be an adventure, this will be an important part to serve, but I never guessed that in 12 weeks we would have so many people come together to create a community of people who cared and worked hard and loved and decided to change the future. So thank you so much for being part of this community. And I'd like to say that the reason, a long time ago, maybe from my mother, I learned that we were put on this earth to build something larger than ourselves, to give back, to serve others. I know that's why you're here tonight, and that's why we're here also. Just briefly, let me touch on some of the important issues in this campaign. Number 1, we have to build a new American economy. We have the greatest income inequality in American history. We have a tipped wage that hasn't been changed since 1991. 15 million people will get a raise if we raise the minimum wage. We have 600,000 unskilled manufacturing jobs we can't fill. And every one of us has children living in our basement, grown children, because they can't find a job. We really have to rebuild an American economy post-globalization. Second, we have to do something about climate change. It is the great challenge that faces our children and grandchildren. And there are many things that we can do. I mean, we can start with a national carbon tax. We can start by not building the Keystone Pipeline. We can start by banning fracking in the George Washington Forest and thinking about fracking. Number 3, we have to take care of our federal workers. I mean, the government is to make our lives better. And it doesn't make any sense when we take the government workers who serve every one of us and freeze their incomes for 3 years, shut down government, do sequester, and everything else.
Thank you, Don.
Last year, there were 11,078 gun homicides in America. 30,000 gun deaths, if you include suicides and accidental shootings. Someone has to finally stand up to the National Rifle Association and say enough. And that's the simple things. Comprehensive background checks, close the gun show loophole, ban high-capacity magazines, and for God's sakes, let lawyers sue gun manufacturers and gun sellers if there's a problem. 7.5 million people have signed up already for private health insurance under the American ACA. And we're just starting. But I don't know how, finally, the richest country in the history of mankind is moving towards giving health care for every American. And let me also say that when I was lieutenant governor for 8 years, I did everything I could to stand up against parental consent and parental notification laws. But looking just at transvaginal stuff last year, the battle is not over. Ken Cuccinelli's changing the regulations for clinics. The battle is not over. And I want to be with you to stand up firmly for a woman's right to choose from now and forever. I was talking to my brother yesterday. We have more than half of the workers in our family business were born overseas. They work hard, they're smart. I'm not used to quoting Jeb Bush, but last week he did say that we need to look at so many American immigrants who come as an act of love. Half of the GDP in most Central American countries are transfer payments from jobs here in the United States. We need to create a real path for citizenship for these hardworking Americans. And I'm so proud of our Attorney General and of hardworking Virginia political leaders like Adam Evan, who for years have worked on marriage equality. And we finally now have it in Virginia, and it's sweeping the nation, sweeping the world. and I want to be with all of you in standing for the human rights of every single person. But I heard a long time ago that, we only ever really learn through role models, through finding somebody, a mother, a father, a grandmother who inspires us and changes us. And I have one terrific role model for me, for Megan, for my family here tonight. We were lieutenant governors together, and I'm very fond of lieutenant governors. And in January of 2003, we heard him speak at a little free event over in McLean. And we were sort of fishing around for 2004 presidential candidate, and we walked out and said, this is our guy. We want to work for Howard Dean. And there were three reasons. Number one, he was the most articulate, ardent, angry, powerful voice against the war in Iraq. Number two, he was a doctor, and he stood up and said, the richest nation in the history of the world should have health care for all. Costa Rica has health care. And number three, he was the first governor in the nation to bravely sign a marriage equality bill. And did we have fun on that campaign or what? And here it is, it's 10, 11 years later, and he was right. The Iraq War was the greatest strategic disaster in American history. We're finally moving to health care for all, and we finally have a marriage equality for all. Governor Dean. What I love about Howard Dean is he's a long-term thinker. I mean, he doesn't think just about the next election or the next 5 years. And let me give you a couple of examples. I was his treasurer. I get none of the credit, but I was there at the birth of small dollar fundraising. And, in the light, he must have been looking ahead saying, someday there will be a Citizens United. Someday there will be a McCutcheon. We have to have a counter role model where a campaign is funded by tens of thousands of people giving $10 and $20 and $25. Thank you, Governor Dean. He was really the first political leader that I've ever worked for where the campaign wasn't about him. Remember, he kept saying to us, you have the power, the people power campaign. It was never about, this is the most ego-free man I've ever met. Old clothes, old car, old house. There was none of the, look at me, I'm powerful, look at me, I'm important. He always made it about us and about what we could do. And when the campaign was over, what did he say? He said, go run for school board. Go run for the county board. Go run for delegate. Go run for Congress. He told us to go out and seize destiny of this political landscape. And little by little, there are probably hundreds, maybe thousands of Americans who are in positions of political leadership today because of what he suggested all those years ago. And then we made him Democratic Party chair, the DNC chair. And once again, there was the power of long-term thinking. For example, the thing that I like best was, it was Howard Dean who said, we're no longer going to write off Wyoming and Idaho and Texas and Virginia. He was going to say we need a 50-state strategy. Who cares that Lyndon Johnson was the last one that wasn't Virginia? We need a 50-state strategy. He got in a little trouble with Rahm Emanuel in 2006. Rahm wanted to focus just on the races we could win. Howard wanted to focus on 50 states. And guess what? We took back the House of Delegates, House of Representatives. And then 2 years later, there are many who wanted to focus just on a few things, but some young senator named Barack Obama and some young campaign functionary named David Plouffe said, we should listen to our DNC chair and see how many, if we can maybe get more delegates in Idaho than the opposition gets in New Jersey, and many other things. And we got a Democratic president, the first one to win more than 50% of the vote in a generation. Ladies and gentlemen, the best long-term thinker I know, my role model, Governor Howard Dean.
about 10 years since I was introduced to music like this. I'm only sorry it's not a beautiful day. Not that sorry. That was the theme song, right? So this is fun. This is great. This is like a reunion. There are a lot of great stories here. One of the most fun times of the campaign, of course, was the Sleepless Summer Tour, which started in Falls Church. We thought at the time there were 3,000 people there, but I've met so many people across the country who are there. We now know that 250,000 people came. Let me say a little bit about why I'm here for Don. He was my campaign treasurer, so there's some loyalty there. I believe you helped the people who helped you. But Don and Megan are two extraordinary human beings. First of all, they're great parents, which matters a lot, and they have kids that are just as outrageous as Megan is. You've asked me questions that I can't repeat here. But, and they're a great family, and the most important thing of all is their values. Now, Don laid out his positions on the issues, which I think are great and are incredibly progressive, and that's what we need. I actually don't judge people solely on their positions. What this country needs is people who will stop dealing in hate and anger and start working with others who we may disagree with. And Don Beyer has a capacity to do that, which he's had for a very long time. So I love the idea of some of the things that he has just talked about now, that marriage equality and standing up for individual rights and standing up for people, particularly at the low end of the economic scale, who've been screwed by this sort of corporate philosophy that we now have, where corporations get everything and ordinary people get nothing. I love somebody who's going to try to deal with income and inequality in this country, which I actually think is the biggest issue facing the country. The reason for that is, it's not because I'm a liberal Democrat. It isn't. That's not why. It's not ideological. The biggest danger in the incredible income inequality we have in this country is that 80% of the people in this country have not had a raise in 20 years. 20 years. All the growth of income in this country has been in the top 20%, and a lot of it's been in the top 1%. You've seen the charts. They're incredible. The danger of that is not, it's immoral, although I think it is. The danger of that is this country really is the greatest country in the world, not because we're all better than everybody else, but because we are founded in the belief that you can start from nothing and work really hard and make something of yourself, and that your kids might be able to go to college, and that they might be having a good life, and you can build your community. That is what's at risk. If 80% of the people haven't had a raise for 20 years because of the machinations of Congress and politicians and failed institutions like Wall Street, if 80% of the people believe, and they're starting to believe it, that you can play by the rules and the deck is fixed against you, then America dies, because the core of the American dream is the possibility, not that being rich is bad, we don't believe that, but the core of the American dream is that someday we could be like that if we work hard enough and if we listen to what our parents have to say and if our values are right. So what is being destroyed by the Koch brothers and others is not simply campaign finance and skullduggery in politics. What's being destroyed is the core of who we are as Americans. And that core means that it is the individual vote that matters, not how much money you have. That was what the Supreme Court destroyed in the country of citizens united. So Megan and Don, and they are a team, and what a great couple. If ever there was the proof that opposites attract and opposites Although I have a marriage like that. My wife once says to me, about every once a year, she says, she sees something she's really upset about on television. She goes, "Howard, you would have been a great president. You would have been really good for the country. I'm really glad you didn't win." So, we got to send these guys to Congress.
Yeah.
We have to do that. Don Beyer's going to vote right. He's going to vote the way we want him to vote, because it's in his core, not because he's going to take polls to find out what his constituency says every 5 minutes, which is exactly the wrong thing that Washington people do. It's because he has an inner compass, guided by Megan's inner compass. He has an inner compass that has a strong sense of what is right and what is wrong. And that's what you want. More so, you don't want somebody in Congress that's going to agree with you all the time. What you do, I mean, Tom Perriello was a great politician from Virginia. Why? And he was elected in a really conservative district. And after the Affordable Care Act passed, he went down to his district and he lost the race, not by much. And the reason he almost won in one of the most conservative districts in Virginia is because he stood up for what we believed in. Don Beyer practices conviction politics, and conviction politics will always get you further than catering to people's worst instincts in the long run, and it's much better for the country. People want to respect politicians, and they can't respect politicians unless they stand for something. Don Beyer is not afraid to say what he stands for. He just did, and you can take to the bank that that's how he's going to vote when he gets into Congress.
Yeah.
But that is not enough. We are plagued by a whole group of people in Congress that have put their party above the interests of their country. When you are willing to shut down the government to prove a political point and harm the credit rating of the United States of America, when you believe that the way to win is to have less people vote, then you would be more comfortable with Ukrainian politics than you are with American politics. If you are part of an effort to restrict people's rights to vote in the United States of America, then democracy is not a value that you espouse, and we live in a democracy. It's the foremost democracy over history that's ever existed in history, in human history. We need to support our democracy, which means we need people like Don Beyer, and not people, well, it's such a long list on the other side. Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, the House of Delegates in this state, which made it harder for ordinary people to vote. These folks ought not to be in politics because they have not valued the core of democracy. It is okay to win, even by taking out lots of ads that say terrible things about your opponent. We don't like it, but it's not okay to win by taking away people's right to vote. And it's not okay to do that and have the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Earl Warren must be turning over in his grave. And these are small people on this court. They may be smart, but they are small, tiny human beings with wizened souls. And we are going to replace them when we get a third Democratic president of the world. We are a great country. We are a great people. It is time that we were represented in the House and Senate by people who are as good as we are. This is a great nation. What the hell happened to Congress? They're supposed to represent us, and they are not doing it. Don Beyer will do it, and he's the beginning of the trend that we need to start to take over the Congress of the United States of America and have it owned by the public and not by the Koch brothers and the right-wing Supreme Court that forgot what the Constitution said, if they ever knew or if they ever cared. Thank you all for coming. Let me thank all of you, those guys. Whose idea was it to put these Dean buttons out here? There'll be an announcement about that shortly in case there's any press in the room. Let me thank you. Let me turn this back. I'm not sure who I'm supposed to because I haven't seen the script, of course. Okay. And if I did, I wouldn't pay any attention to it. But Scotty, so I'm turning the microphone over to Scotty. Okay. So I'm getting this microphone back to the boss. Thank you very much for coming. There are a lot of great friends that I have here, and I really appreciate it. Let me particularly thank the Volocella. Is that it? The name of the pizza place? Volocella. Thank you. That was incredibly nice. And I talked to the guy. He's gone now, but he's great. He's a great Democrat. He's the kind of Democrat we need. He's a small business Democrat. He's got sensible fiscal policies that we have to follow because we need small businesses to do well. But he's not about to sell out ordinary Americans and victimize people in minority groups in order to do that. That's why he's a Democrat. There are lots of great Democrats in this country who don't always agree, but I know somebody who's going to help us work together. He's even going to work with the other side of the aisle because we need to get them to be civil once again in order to make this country work. So I'll give this back to the next congressman from this district, Don Beyer.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Scotty. Thanks for organizing this. Thank all of you. Please vote for me on June 10th. Please volunteer in the campaign. And please give it up for Governor Howard Dean.